Bald and bankrupt. Welcome back to Jacobism, lovely people. Today we've got one for the lads and perhaps some of the women. And it's how to go bald without anxiety. I have my own experience with balding, and it's no secret that my barnet is creeping back. Now that might seem a bit ironic, because some of you might be thinking, what is this guy on about? His hair looks fine. Yes, it does for the moment, but I can assure you, one day I will join the brotherhood. I created this video because I wanted to help people that worry about balding and to show them that it's really not something to worry about. Truly. We're going to look at my personal experience, the typical concerns, and the idea of self-perception. Let's get into it. And now in this first point, we're going to look at my personal experience. As you can see from the thumbnail, I used to have quite a rocking afro, and I will say that it was pretty cool, and I felt like a pimp out of the 80s. I started growing it out in January time of 2020, and I would slick it back with some product. Due to the style, it meant that I would run my hands through my hair upwards of 20 times a day. And until one fateful day in September of 2020, I'd run my hands through my hair and I'd see a fucking number of hairs in my hand. Literally, it was like a switch got flicked from one day to the next. Panic ensued, but I believed it was temporary. I couldn't possibly be losing my hair at 21. Denial. I continued to grow it out, and I would push it forward to hide the treacherous and looming arches. However gentle I tried to wash or style it, the hairs would vacate my dome. Nevertheless, as I withheld my secret, it remained unknown to others. It was quite a loved look. Random people would smile at me, so too the cheekers. People would ask me if it was a perm, and it remained famed throughout the lands. The hair and the resultant attention was something that I attached to my identity. Despite all this, the hairs kept on falling, and it caused me a lot of stress because I couldn't stop thinking about it, which brings me on to my next point. Now time for the worries I experienced and believe are universal with a lot of people's experience of pattern balding. As stated before, I believe the hair was a part of my identity and a meaningful reason as to why people liked me, and as such, attached to my self-worth. When an individual loses their hair, they worry about whether people will still like them, and more likely, whether the sex that they're attracted to, usually women, are still going to find them attractive. People have the idea that bald men are inherently unattractive, and the reality, as we'll come on to, is a little bit more nuanced, but that was my first folly. Another worry I had was that it felt like some secret that I was holding close to my heart. Because my hair was long, I didn't know the true extent of the loss, but believed at the rate which I was seeing it go, I must look like Larry David. Folly number 2. Now in this third point, we're going to look at the realizations which I believe serve as tools to quell your concerns. But before we do, I'm going to finish off the story. I was at university at the time during 2021, and just as the COVID restrictions were ending, for want of a better word, people were letting their hair down. I got in decent shape in the second half of the year, and having incessantly saved my whole life, I thought, fuck it. And I bought myself a dark blue over tan E46 BMW 3-litre cabriolet manual on some proper pimp shit. I returned to London and life was good. I was having a good time, but the hair didn't care. I went to live with a family friend who kind of doubled up as a male mentor. Cool guy. And towards the end of the summer, I revealed my anxieties to him, and he said, to be honest, mate, I always thought your hair was a bit of a par. Just buzz it off. And buzz it off I did. When I shaved it, the relief and peace I felt was indescribable. Since I buzzed it to a 1, I could no longer play with it or style it. I couldn't do anything with it. My secret was out to the world, and much to my surprise, I didn't look like Larry David. However, it was the realizations that I came to not long after which made all the difference. And now it's time for those realizations. Let me ask you, how heavy is a glass of water? Half a kilo? You don't know? Well, it all depends how long you hold it. If you held it for a sip, it's not heavy. If you held it for 10 minutes, it might be a little bit inconvenient. If you held it for a day, probably get a little bit heavy. If you carried this glass of water with you for years on end, it would be the heaviest fucking thing in the world. Not only did this analogy help me understand where I went wrong with my hair, but it helped me with any other chronic anxiety that I might hold. Burying my head in the sand only makes it worse. My second realization was that, much to my surprise, my friends and family, and even the women, didn't find me repulsive, but still liked me. My hair meant and contributed absolutely nothing. They didn't like or love me based on my looks whatsoever. I even gained the respect of some men, and at times feared for my safety with the way that some women would look at me. Obviously at first, going from afro to buzz cut, they were a little bit taken aback, but within 5 minutes they treated me as they always did. Lastly, and this is the most important, I realised that my perception of my self-image was greatly skewed from the reality. I built up, in my mind, a reality in which people liked me because of my hair, and that once I got rid of it, not only would they not think I was as cool, but would be repelled by the fact that I would one day join the Shiny Dome Club. How wrong was I? Nothing changed whatsoever. I went from being an unconvincing pretty boy with girls smiling at me on the streets to being an unconvincing hard nut cunt with women growling at me. And I can assure you, that way round is the way you want it. Now in this fourth and last point, I'm going to give you some parting advice. Firstly, being bald does not make you inherently unattractive. Much like whether you have short or long hair, people have preferences, and the same goes with bald men. Also, long hair is polarizing. Some men and women are repulsed by men with long hair because of the notion that men aren't meant to have long hair. The reality is too that the statistics say 20% of men in their 20s experience some form of hair loss, and that increases with each decade in tandem with the percentage. 30-year-olds 30%, 60-year-olds 60%, and so on. It's an unavoidable fact. Therefore, if you're young and balding, whilst you might be in the minority now, lots of men will catch up, and you will find that lots of older women quite like short-haired or even bald men. It's an inevitability that lots of men and women will eventually have to put up with. If you're stressed and anxious about losing your hair, put down the glass of water and shave your dome. Don't worry, it grows back. And in my case, you might look better with short hair, and so you might be in for a little surprise. Lastly, don't connect your self-image to your identity. So long as you're a good person, your friends and family will love you regardless of how you look. And as handsome as I am and you might be, looks will fade, and at this rate, I'm going to look like a wrinkly old ball bag in my 40s. And now it is time to end, lovely people. I hope that this video has shown you that balding isn't something to worry about. It's natural and happens to the best of us. If you got this far, thank you for watching. I really mean that. I wish you the best on your journeys, and you should know that I have a bet with my cameraman that when we get to 1,000 subscribers, he's going to have to shave his head. And so for the sake of my happiness and his misery, you know what to do.